This is CounselCast, part of the Legal Talk Network, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy. When you face a complex case outside your expertise, you bring in a co-counsel for next-level results. When you want to engage, expand, and elevate your firm, you bring in a marketing co-counsel. In this podcast, I bring in marketing experts who each answer one big question to help your firm achieve more. Here's today's guest.
Hi, Karen. How are you? Good to see you. I appreciate you having me on your show. Hopefully, we both can make a fool of each other together.
Bharat Kanodia, thank you so much for being here today. This is going to be a very interesting and valuable episode where we are going to talk about money and finances, and the big question that we're going to get to is, what is a law firm worth? And I know this is something that you've talked about a lot. You've got a YouTube video on this. You've got some blog posts. So you've got the info. You've kind of gone through this exercise of figuring this out. But how do you even start? Where does a firm owner start with trying to figure out valuation on their firm?
Yeah, the first question to ask is, why would you need a valuation for it?
Yeah, right.
I mean, nobody wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to get an appraisal today. I don't get too many of those calls, believe me or not.
Yeah.
And that's why I got to be really charming. So this is me being charming. Most people need a valuation if they have some kind of a pending transaction coming up.
Okay.
Or if they need to file taxes on their firm or their practice, or they're under some kind of a litigation, maybe getting a divorce or something under the rule of law.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody says, let's get a valuation. Now, I do have a conflict of interest when I say this, but that does not mean I'm wrong. Everybody should be getting a valuation on a yearly basis. And that is because, why do you get a report card at the end of the year after you're done with school or a semester?
Yeah.
That tells you how you did.
Sure.
So if you are an attorney or a partner at a law firm and you're working 80 hours a week, or you're making at least other people work 80 hours a week, you need to know that, hey, have we really added value to our firm? And you can only do that, not just by counting the billable hours or by the revenue you have made, by getting a valuation. And believe it or not, just because you have made additional revenue this year or your revenue is high, that directly does not translate into a high valuation. That's what most attorneys think, and that is incorrect.
Okay, so let's back up to the first part of your answer was, why do you even need a valuation? And my initial thought was none of those answers that you provided. My initial thought was that they're getting ready to sell the firm. And so they're trying to figure out, okay, I'm done. I feel like I either am done being a lawyer or maybe approaching retirement, or ideally, you aren't approaching retirement. You've kind of built it up. You've got this whole plan, and you're at a great place in your career where you do want to sell it and then go on to whatever that next phase in your life is, and you have to figure out how much it's worth. So that's another scenario where ideally law firm owners are planning for that and then trying to figure out, okay, what's it worth? So where do they start with that? And then what's the difference between, like you said, the valuation and the kind of profitability of that firm?
Great point. So one of the reasons I said for a valuation is a pending transaction of some kind, and that comes to thing that, hey, they're looking to sell the business.
Sure.
Or in a law firm's case, a partner buyout or transferring shares to a junior partners or what have you, some kind of a transition plan. It's all in one.
Okay.
And when I say just because you have revenue, that does not necessarily mean profit, or does that is not a 1:1 equation to a higher valuation, because in a valuation, I am looking for revenue that is sticky.
Okay, what does that mean?
So I am looking for revenue from customers that write you checks on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis.
Okay, recurring.
Recurring revenue,
Yeah.
precisely.
Yeah.
So a criminal defense attorney, that's a hard practice to value. A corporate attorney, that's an easy practice to value.
Sure.
A family attorney, that's a hard practice to value. People, you might have some recurring customers, but somebody can only get divorced twice, maybe thrice. If
Right.
they have a lot of family problems, like, okay, my God. Um, so in the law arena, this is most important because, some lawyers really do need to find new customers on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that makes it difficult. So practices that have recurring revenue, so say if you have a practice in venture capital or some kind of a corporate practice, those are fairly straightforward because it's recurring revenue. So law firms are usually valued anywhere between 0.5 to 1.25x on revenue.
Okay.
And the spread between 0.5 and 1.25 really varies on the stickiness of that revenue. So
Okay. So
if it's very sticky revenue, like a corporate practice also, if it's coming from, say, B2B clients or institutional clients, that's very valuable.
yeah. So let's say that you're a newish lawyer and you're starting your firm and you're thinking, okay, down the road, I want this to be a 10-year plan. And so in 10 years, I want to be set up with a firm that is going to do one of those transactions you described. I'm either bringing on partners, which I think actually that should be a shorter term plan. That's maybe 3 to 5 years. Or maybe in 5 to 8 years, I'm starting the process to sell the firm. So how do you get started with that kind of a thought process in terms of the way that you set up your firm to make sure that you have the numbers and that sticky factor that you're talking about in a more valuable way, so that and I mean value in terms of valuation, not just kind of in terms of an adjective, but in terms of the actual numbers of a valuation of a firm?
Great question. So if your business model is set up in a way where you have the same customer writing you checks recurringly, that firm or that business model is very valuable.
Okay.
So, say for example, a trademark attorney. Might get paid on a per trademark basis, or they might have a minimal monthly fee of say $100 or $150 to maintain that trademark.
Yeah.
That $150 a month on a dollar-to-dollar basis, right? So say if they charge, say, $3,000 for filing the trademark and $150 to maintaining the trademark. On a dollar-to-dollar basis, that $150 on a monthly basis is far more valuable than the $3,000 that's one time.
Because it's more of a higher lifetime value.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
they write you that check on a monthly basis, no matter what. And a potential buyer is not going to look too kindly on that $3,000 because they probably never will see it.
Right.
They will look very, very kindly, did I say very, on that $150 a month.
So if I'm following you, which I think I am, this whole idea of subscription business models in terms of law firms, which it really seems to be the hot topic that most firms are trying to find a path into this. It's not just because you have a better, work-life balance, which you do. Like that's a great, bonus in that whole idea. You have a better kind of mental health because from 1 month to the next, you have a baseline of income that you can count on so that you don't have to start from scratch on the first of every month. But long term, you've got a much more solid and valuable foundation of this firm so that when you're going to sell it, this idea of whether you're going to take on project by project versus finding a way to monetize that client interaction as a subscription is the path forward. That's what you have to focus on.
Very much so. Well said.
Yeah. Okay. So if you take that $3,000 transaction, and let's say all the other guys down the road are doing that, because that's it's a traditional way of doing I'm going to stay with the patent attorney idea. And then you break it up, and initially that initial transition between that upfront cost and then taking it as a monthly cost, it's hard to get over that hurdle of getting used to that feeling of those small bites instead of big chunks. But then you have a longer interaction with that client.
Very much so. Very much so. You got to look at valuation from a potential buyer's perspective, right? A potential buyer only wants two things. Really, only two things. And people make this so complicated, and they really do not need to. And somebody might say, oh no, they need three things. Oh no, they need five things. Bullshit. They need two things, and that's it. If somebody tells you otherwise, call bullshit on them. And those two things are, one, they want consistent cash flow, is in recurring revenue. Same customers paying you money on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis. You don't have to go out and hunt for a new customer daily. As you said, you don't have to start over every month.
Yeah.
Secondly, they don't want to do anything to service that customer. So if a new buyer, automate or have layers of management.
Okay.
Layers of management are expensive, so right. Automation is favored. But in law firm, not everything can be automated. If everything could be automated, there would be no attorneys. So
imagine that world.
Yeah. Wait, who were your audience again?
Yeah, right.
Now, not everything can be automated, right? I mean, if you have to write a brief, you can't use, software to write a brief. I mean, maybe nowadays you can, but you still need somebody.
It's not going to be good. Yeah. Right.
So start with what can be automated. People always come back to me and say, hey, no, I run a law firm. I run an accounting practice. This can't be automated. Well, I understand not 100% can be automated, right? Even a 747 running on autopilot still needs a captain or a pilot sitting on the seat watching what's happening. So it's still not 100% on autopilot. So think about what can be automated. Start with those things, the simple things, the account receivables, payables, payroll, digital marketing, email solicitation, sending, birthday cards, greetings, those things can be automated. Start with those and then move on to the bigger things. Don't just start by saying, oh no, I'm too important for my business. My business can't be automated, because then you're not really creating value. What you're doing is you are creating a job for a new or a potential buyer, and nobody pays big money for a job. People pay big money for a business that gives them cash flow.
So the summary in my mind is some kind of subscription, some subscription plan that keeps your clients active and paying, and automation.
That's it.
Yeah.
Or layers of management that helps you service that business more. Or efficiently, I shouldn't say more.
Okay. But ideally automation, because it's cheaper.
It's far cheaper. Yes.
Yeah.
Paying the $100, $150, $200, even $500 a month on some software is so much cheaper than even hiring somebody in the Philippines.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so then coming back to this idea of then how you figure out the worth and the value of a firm. So they start looking at, let's assume you've done all these things well. You've got your subscriptions. You've got your clients that are kind of on that recurring revenue model. You've automated as much as you can, and you're getting ready to go sell the firm. And so how do you start to have some sense around how much it's worth when you're looking at those subscriptions and you realize, okay, I've got a bunch of subscriptions. These are worth more than just these one-off clients that my neighbor has. How much more? How do I figure this out? Where's the valuation? How do I put a dollar sign on this to this guy over here who might want to buy me?
So A rule of thumb is your revenue is worth anywhere between zero point 0.5 to 1.25x of your revenue. So say if it's
Okay.
$1 million firm, your firm could be worth anywhere between $500,000 to about $1.25 million. Now that's a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
So what I would do is, if I were you, if as a quick and dirty calc, I would take all the customers or the revenue that's on a recurring or a monthly basis and put that in the 1 to 1.25 bucket.
Okay.
And I'll put all the one-off revenue, ad hoc revenue, and put that in the zero point 0.5 bucket. And then
Okay. And then do the math. That's the part that I feel like a lot of lawyers didn't want to hear, that there was going to be math involved.
it's a dirty business, but somebody's got to do it.
Right. You just get a big calculator, or you find somebody with a big calculator that can put the numbers in and hit the plus sign or the minus sign or whatever the case might be.
Yes.
Okay, so they've got this number and they've got this kind of valuation. And so does it usually work out that way where you present your valuation to the market? Is it kind of like listing a house where here's the price we're going for, let's throw this out to the market and see what happens, or what comes next?
Great question. So, it is similar to selling a house, but not entirely, but yeah, fairly close. So first thing they need to do is they need to have some kind of a range that, hey, how much will I accept at the low point that if somebody offers me? Or what is the ideal number that I want? So the range could vary anywhere between $200 and $50 million.
Okay.
Say, for example, right? And then you come up with, you talk to a business broker who specializes in selling law firms, and you talk to them, or there are coaches who help sell firms or partnerships within the firms, and you talk to them that, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what my valuation is, what do you think this thing is worth, or how much can you help me sell it for? And then you list your business.
Okay.
The biggest problem people have is they say, hey, I can't list my business, I don't want my clients to know that I'm going to sell my business. Well, guess what? Your clients are going to find out.
Exactly.
What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah. It's like saying, I don't want people to know I'm pregnant. Like at some point, it's going to be visible. People are going to know.
That's how this works.
Right. Yeah.
So the only question is, do you want to be ahead of the ball or do you want to be chasing it?
Yeah.
So it's better to be ahead of the ball, let the clients know, hey, this is what I'm doing, but also tell them why.
Yeah. That matters a lot. It's not like we're in a desperate situation. We're trying to, run from, we're just barely keeping it together before we go bankrupt.
Right.
Because people assume the worst when they hear things like that. And as far as when you were talking about talking to a coach and kind of approaching them with your hopes for what your valuation is. Before we started recording, you were saying that you thought MBA was a waste of time. So I'm going to use my MBA phrases. And we call that a BATNA. So you go in with your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. That's the BATNA, where you say, here's my bottom line. I'm not going to take anything below this. And it's basically your plan. So you don't walk into any kind of a negotiation and, and get swayed and kind of walk away thinking, oh, that was not what I wanted to have happen. So you figure out what your best alternative, you have your hopes and then you have your BATNA and you go in and figure out kind of what the market will bear.
Yeah, and very much so. And you want to be very honest with your clients. Look, I'm trying to sell because, look, I'm 66 years old. I'm done. I have a few years remaining. I want to spend time with my daughter or my wife or, my mistress, what have you, right?
Yeah.
Or, you just say that, look, I want to go try something else.
Yeah.
But you want to be ahead of the ball and also let the clients know that what the plan is. Look, I'm going to transition to this new owner or this new partner, but I am still around. And guess what? You will be around. Nobody's just going to take the keys of the truck and let you walk away in oblivion.
Right.
This is not like selling a house, right? Many people think selling a firm or selling a business is like selling a house where you get to walk away instantaneously.
Yeah.
No, selling a business doesn't work like that. There will be some strings attached for at least a year or two,
Yeah.
so that the new buyer or the new owner is doing all that needs to be done or is aware of all that needs to be known about your business and your clients.
Yeah.
There is some, there will be issues in client transition. There will be need for knowledge transfer. There will be need for, working through staff attrition, and all these things matter. And that's why, if you want to sell your firm for, say, $5 million, don't expect somebody to just write you a check for $5 million.
And
It
have you
doesn't
go off
work.
to a beach somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. This is,
No.
this is not the movies. This is not a
No.
John Grisham novel.
Well, and anyone who's been through a merger or acquisition knows what that feels like. And you've, anyone, maybe you haven't, but your cousin has, and you see that logical sequence of events where new company comes in, they get rid of some people, and then they keep on a bunch of the employees for that knowledge transfer. And those people, I've been through acquisition where I was kept on, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. Just kind of being here to kind of be milked for all of my value, and then being dismissed afterwards. So recognize that there are challenges in that whole thing, especially from a staffing perspective. It's really complicated to make everybody feel okay about that, because they all see the writing on the wall. When there's people coming in, people going out, some people being laid off, and that whole process. But you have to maintain a certain level of the business for it to survive.
Very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so. So you'll have some kind of an employment contract and some kind of a earnout that, hey, we will pay you a certain percentage of your price over the next 2 years, or, whatever you have promised. Because, one thing I'll always see in transactions is like, okay, today my revenue is $100, but next year my revenue was going to be $150. I'm selling you $150.
Yeah.
And when the buyer comes and say, okay, fine, I will give you this money next year after you achieve the $150 in revenue. And then all hell breaks loose. Like, oh my God, I can't believe the guy said that. He doesn't trust me. I don't want to sell my business to them. Like, okay, dude, just calm down. Seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
you say your revenue is 100, and next year you say the revenue is going to be 150. Don't you think the person should have a healthy doubt that
Right.
how that person is going to get to 150? And they're not saying you won't and I won't pay you for that. All they're saying is, I will pay you your price based on the 150 after you achieve 150.
Right. Right.
I don't see anything unfair in that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of Shark Tank, and I'm imagining a lawyer walking into the Shark Tank. And that's basically what we're talking about. And
Yes.
a lawyer's walking in, and, there's the lawyer, his ego, his, law school experience, like all of this stuff that's on his shoulders. And he walks in, and he's got the sharks in front of him. And I've watched enough Shark Tank to know that you can't pitch them on future potential earnings, because no one, you're trying to predict the future. And so,
Well, especially in a law firm's case,
right,
because it is very difficult to scale. I mean, this is not like selling, Zoom subscriptions where you can go from a zero to 1 million in 2 days.
right.
It's difficult to scale billable time. You got to add people, you got to hire people, you got to train people. That's not doable overnight.
Yeah. So if you're imagining that lawyer in the Shark Tank, how is this different from that kind of a presentation when you're thinking about selling that firm, or you're putting together that valuation and trying to present it to a potential investor?
Very different. As I said, scalability is very different.
Okay,
You
so
know,
you have to think in terms of your staff and the kind of all of those
I'll give
costs?
you an example. A few years ago, people were being hard on Elon Musk because the analysts on Wall Street were saying, well, they're not growing fast enough. And I was laughing because that really explained to me how little the analysts know about the business Elon Musk is in. Tesla is not a technology company. Tesla is a auto company. And an auto company, to make cars, they need factories.
Yeah.
To make factories, they need to acquire land. To build on that land, they need to acquire permits. They need to acquire labor. They need to acquire material. They need to lay down cement and foundations. And cement takes 48 hours to cure, sometimes 24 hours. I mean, and there's nothing Wall Street or you or I or Elon can do about that. And if these analysts are saying that they're not scaling fast enough, well, they're stupid because they don't know. So the same thing that if somebody says that, hey, your law firm is not scaling fast enough, that person is either not an attorney and doesn't know how a law firm works, or has never run a professional services firm.
Yeah.
You need to hire people. And if you hire the wrong people, guess what's going to happen to your professional services firm?
Right.
Where your biggest assets, walk out and go home every day. That's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And they get hit by buses and things happen. And then, we have a global pandemic and all of a sudden everybody's life goals change and they walk out the door and then they don't come back or whatever the case might be. I mean, they're people. So it's not just like a number on a spreadsheet. So the big difference you're kind of describing in terms of pitching to an investor, like the Shark Tank thing, really just comes down to the people and the staffing and the kind of knowledge transfer and the knowledge base is where your value is. And so it's hard to it's difficult to put numbers on that and to value it in the same way that they do for like a cupcake company that they do on Shark Tank or whatever.
If you were to pitch your law firm to Shark Tank, I would focus on two factors. And those factors are, how sticky is your current revenue? That, hey, these clients write me a check on a monthly basis no matter what. And second, how are you going to increase that sticky revenue using your reputation or whatever you want to use?
Yeah, marketing.
Marketing. How are you going to make that sticky rice into more sticky rice?
Yeah, big pot
That's
of
it.
sticky rice.
Pot of sticky. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think that's super valuable. So, no smooth transition into our book review at this point. I feel like we're just going to jump right into it. So, Bharat, as you know, our audience is full of lawyers, and thank you so much for holding up your book so we can get the visual cue there. So what's the book that you just held up that you're going to recommend to the audience?
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And
Why?
I like this book because I have a very sensitive bullshit meter. When somebody gives me sermons, Karen,
Yeah.
you should do this.
Yeah.
You should not do this.
Yeah.
Karen, when you go to China, speak Chinese. Oh, fuck. Thank
Yeah.
you, Sherlock.
Right.
This book is no BS. These are all stories, and these are all practical things that he talks about. And it's an
Okay.
easy read. Maybe a couple of nights after dinner, you're done. So that's why I
And
like
he's giving you advice about like what does he mean by never split the difference? What is he kind of giving you the advice about kind of
So usually,
interactions?
say for example, if you're selling your law firm and I'm a buyer and you're saying $1 million and I say $500,000, and most people will say, all right, fine, let's split the difference,
Yeah.
let's make a deal. And he's saying, don't do that.
Why?
because there are better ways of negotiating. There are better ways of bringing people to your sides. And he talks about those ways. And
Okay.
that's why this book is giving you the how-to. I mean, there are many books that tell you, like they're sermons. It's kind of like going to church.
Yeah.
It's like, you do this, you do that. Well, nobody tells you how to.
Right.
I only talk to people, or I only believe advisors or coaches who tell you the how to.
Yeah.
Because without that, hey, I could be giving sermons all day.
Right. Yeah, I always kind of question those guys who just feel like they could jump in and give you all that advice about a life that they've only known for 5 minutes, or maybe they don't even know it at all. And it's like, I feel like that's a little more complicated than that. Awesome. We will link.
People tell you, right? Oh, Karen, lose weight. Karen, don't get angry. Karen, you should be kind to your sister.
Yes.
I know that.
How?
How?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, awesome. We will link to that book. That sounds like a great resource that has a lot of actionable tips and, how to do all those things, not just don't split the difference, how and why, and all of those things about, all those follow-up questions that are so important. So, Bharat, what's one big takeaway that you would want listeners to get from this episode?
The big takeaway is look for sticky revenue.
Yeah. Make a big pot of sticky rice and then keep
a pot of sticky rice and keep it and keep making more and more. And most people, are looking for that balloon payment, right?
Yeah.
Don't look for that balloon payment. Look for that recurring revenue type of clients.
Awesome. Bharat Kanodia, which I have a hard time pronouncing, is the founder and chief appraiser of Veristrat. It's a technology company, and we will link to your website, your YouTube channel, the blog post about how to evaluate a law firm, and all of your social media accounts as well. So, Bharat, thanks so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the CounselCast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.